All right, well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the College of Natural and Agricultural Sciences webinar this evening. I am Dr. Stephanie Dingwall. I'm an Associate Professor of Teaching in Biochemistry and also the Divisional Dean of Student Academic Affairs in the college. Before we get started, I would like to introduce some of our very special guests who are our CNAS Science Ambassadors. So for each of these ambassadors, I would like to have you introduce yourself, your name, your major, and where you're from. Samantha, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha Therafam. I'm a third-year biology major on the pre-med track, and I am from Orange County, specifically Irvine.
Thank you, Samantha. Evan, would you like to go next?
Of course. Hey, everyone. My name is Evan Kent. I'm a third-year biochemistry major with a concentration in chemistry, and I'm from Northern California, a little city called Pleasanton. Glad to have you guys here.
Thank you, Evan. And Asal Sadiqian, would you like to finish us off?
Yep, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Asal, and I'm a fourth-year biology major. And actually, I'm a transfer student, so my hometown is Norco, California.
Great. Thank you so much. And again, if anyone has any questions for either myself or the Science Ambassadors, please type it in the webinar chat or the Q&A that's available. So what I'd like to do next is actually introduce a little bit about our college, the College of Natural and Agricultural Sciences, or CNAS. Now, with regards to our college, one of the things that we want to do is make sure that any student coming into our college is fully supported. So on the next slide, we'll see that there is a three-pronged approach to how things in our college work. First of all, we want to empower you all with opportunities. There are opportunities both inside and outside the classroom, and that leads to the engagement, not only with faculty and staff, but also your fellow classmates and peers, because all of this contributes to this sense of belonging. Being part of the CNAS scholar community is what we wish for you all as you come here as first years. So on the next slide, what we're going to see are the different types of majors. So I'd like to do a quick sort of poll, as it were. Please type the major for which you have been admitted into CNAS in the chat. And as you're typing all of these potential majors, just to get a, show of hands, as it were, let me go ahead and tell you about the three divisions in our colleges. We have the life sciences, we have agricultural sciences, and physical sciences. These are actually broken up into the various majors. So for example, biochemistry, biology, CMDB, or cell molecular development biology, entomology, microbiology, neuroscience, and plants. In the mathematical sciences, we have data science, mathematics for teachers of secondary school, stats, and that stats has a BS and MS, so it's a 5-year program, 4 years for your bachelor's, 1 year for master's. And finally, we have our physical sciences, chemistry, earth and planetary sciences, environmental sciences, geology, geophysics, and physics. And the images you actually see below each one of these categories are students who participate in these various fields. On the left-hand side, we actually have a real lab. That's actually a freshman lab, something called Dynamic Genome. In the middle, we actually have something called the Learning Glass, so for part of the mathematics tutorial forum. And on the right-hand side, I'd sort of like to spend a tiny bit of time on this one, because the individual on the left in the hard hat, his name is Jared Hudnall. He's also a former science ambassador, just graduated with his degree in physics, and this picture was actually taken with his faculty professor in Switzerland at CERN. So students like yourself, undergraduates, can actually participate in these types of research. So just want to take a quick look. Looks like I see some biochem, entomology, CMDB, lots of bio, plant bio, environmental sciences. So again, welcome everybody. Now, I alluded to this sort of class called dynamic genome. So on the next slide, let me talk a little bit more about the different types of classes you may be involved in when you're here. Dynamic genome, also known as Bio 20, is not just your typical general biology lab course. You actually have the ability to do experiments your first year. And some of the experiments, believe it or not, can get published. These lab courses give you hands-on experience into doing what would be traditionally considered as upper-level experiments. Quick show of hands, or I should say fingers in the chat. How many of you have heard of a technique called PCR? And if you have, can you type in the chat what it stands for? I see a couple of hands in there. All right. Again, I see someone put in there in the chat, polymerase chain reaction. Right. And again, normally a PCR would basically deal with the multiplication of DNA, the overreplication, as it were. Generally a junior level or senior level type technique. In this class, you can do it as early as your freshman year. And we have faculty actually assisting you with these types of experiments. Now, the next piece is going to be the different types of courses for your capstone. What capstone courses are senior level type classes where you get hands-on experience. Now, these hands-on experience encompass these types of majors from biochemistry all the way down to plant biology. But here's the neat part. You don't have to be a major student to take these capstone courses, provided that you take the appropriate prerequisites to get you there. So you can be a biology major and still take the biochemistry capstone course, again, provided that you have the actual prerequisites. So this now opens up multiple possibilities for all students in CNAS. If you don't like being in a lab and you would rather do field work, that's where this last point is going to be. We also have field research courses in these disciplines. And by field research, I'm talking about getting into a van, driving out to, say, like the middle of the desert, doing your research project, and doing this about 4 or 5 times a quarter because it's part of the class. Some of our biology field research classes actually do this. And again, here are the majors that have these potential options. So if you have any questions, again, please type in the chat, please type in the Q&A. Now, who teaches these types of classes? In the next slide, I'd like to introduce 2 of our faculty who do this. The first faculty member is actually Dr. Juliet Morrison. She's part of the microbiology department, but her class actually introduces students to viruses. It's called the Introduction to Comparative Virology, Microbiology 123. In this class, she talks about what are they, how do they affect other organisms, and then she delves into more detail talking about COVID versus the flu. Fun fact about Dr. Morrison, she was one of 5 UCR professors who actually developed the COVID testing lab during the pandemic in 2020. Now, the other professor I'd like to introduce on this slide teaches a more generic type class. Instead of an upper division major specific, Dr. Boris Baer teaches this class called entomology, bees and beekeeping. Now, he specifically deals with honeybees. UCR actually is well known not only for its citrus, but also for its honey production. And in this class, you as a student could get an opportunity to go out, think about getting all dressed up one of those nice little bee suits, learn how to cultivate bees, learn about honeybees, melitology, and at the end of the class, get your own little jar of honey from your bees. And this is both of these classes are immensely popular. So, think about these as potential electives when you're taking these classes. And as before, they're not necessarily restricted to these majors. They're just options. Now, I just want to answer one of the questions that did come through in the chat. Someone did ask whether or not these research courses can offer opportunity for publications. Some research courses do, as a matter of fact, and undergrads can publish. My own undergraduate, my own department, biochemistry, actually published with me about 3 years ago. Now, the next slide introduces the different types of opportunities where undergrads can continue to get into research and potentially publish to answer that question. These are only a few of the research opportunities offered here in CNAS and also on campus. Let me just go ahead and explain a little bit about the first program, also known as RISE, the Research in Science and Engineering program. This is a summer program, 10 weeks, where a student will be given $5,000 stipends to do undergraduate research under the advice of a faculty mentor. If the student wishes to continue this program, they would just have to have an agreement with their faculty mentor. And many students have found their research labs in these types of programs. Now, another one is actually the Chancellor's Research Fellows. And this is a UC-wide initiative where again, the stipend will be coming not just from the college, but from the chancellor's office. So in these cases, there are multiple opportunities just depending upon what type of program might work with you and which PI or primary investigator, your faculty mentor, would also have available space. So one of the questions that came through in the chat, can you publish if you become a freshman? Well, you'd have to find a lab first. Once you find a lab and work with a primary investigator or faculty member, then you can go ahead and talk about possibilities. Okay. So in the case of RISE, before we go on, I think one of our panelists, Samantha, was actually a RISE scholar. Would you like to just briefly talk about your experience?
Hi, yes, I would love to. So first of all, beyond just the aspect of doing research over the summer, it's also paid research, actually $5,000, which is incredible to be able to have that, especially just also for your resume. But I really enjoyed the program. I loved the structure of it because it can be daunting to think about having to present a research project at a formal symposium, and especially because it was my first time. But I think RISE was the best way for me to do that because they had workshops on abstracts. We actually had Dr. Dingwall come in and speak to us too. And we had a lot of professional development workshops available to us. So I wasn't scared when it came time to the symposium. I was nervous, but that comes with, I feel like, any presentation, but I definitely felt well prepared both from the people that support the program and through my own lab. My PI and the team that I worked with helps me become well prepared.
Thank you, Samantha, for sharing your experience. I'm also going to go ahead and ask Asal, because I know that Asal participates in research too. Would you like to give a little brief explanation of your experience in research?
Yeah, of course. So I didn't participated in these programs. As Dr. Dingwall mentioned, these are just like few ways you can get involved with research. So I actually went to biomedical science department website and I started emailing faculties about like their research opportunities and what interests me about their research. Then I later on started interviewing with those PIs to find a good match and something that like I meet the lab requirements and like the skills that are required for those research, and also it interests me and find a good match basically. So I started in a NCC neural crystals lab, and I started conducting experiments with PhD students as well as my PI. So we actually made a great progress on a technique which is called like electroporation technique, and I'm grateful to be part of that experience.
Great. Thank you very much, Asal, for sharing your experiences as well. Now, we can answer, of course, more questions with regards to this, but on the next slide, what can you do with this type of research? Because I know some of you have already asked about publishing. Well, first of all, the nice part is this week, actually April 21st, starting from yesterday up until this Friday, is also National Undergraduate Research Week. The university, so not just our college, but UCR is actually hosting a combination of oral presentations as well as poster presentations all week. If by any chance any of you are in the area, we do have posters out on our lawn on Friday, and you can actually meet some of the undergraduates who do this research. So as I mentioned, that's the symposium this week. That's highlighted there in gold, the Undergraduate Research and Creative Activity Symposium. Undergraduates can also publish in the Undergraduate Research Journal, and that still counts as a publication. There's also other types of scholarships that are available, and UCR has now come up with a new scholarship portal that students can actually search. For now, you can just Google UCR scholarship, and there you go. Now, I'd like to highlight this one student in this diagram right here. So this is actually a picture that was taken last year at the Undergraduate Research Symposium. It's actually a former student of mine, Leo Chan, and Leo is brilliant. Biochemistry major, graduated, and I get to highlight him because as of yesterday, he just got into medical school at UC San Francisco. So extra kudos to him. And this is actually some of the stuff that students can do to perhaps expand their not just knowledge, but their experience so they know what to do, whether they want to go into research, industry, health professions, or so on and so forth. And we have these opportunities for students. Actually, over half of our students, at least in our college, participate in some sort of research. Now, what other things are there beside research? Different types of programming. On this next slide, I'd like to highlight some of the organizations and groups, as well as opportunities. So our three panelists tonight, Samantha, Evan, and Asal, as I've mentioned, are all CNAS ambassadors. And you could probably try to find them in this picture. I think some of them are there. And what the science ambassadors are basically the best of the best. And they are the elite representation of the college. Now, there's also these learning communities, which I'll talk about in a little second, pathways for transfer students, workshops, peer mentoring, tutoring. So we have a ton of opportunities for students to get involved. Now, with regards to the connections, we have the science ambassadors here. I'd also like to introduce another program. And on the next slide, we'll hear about the CNAS peer mentors. Who peer mentors are basically like these three panelists. They actually, though, separately guide you through, say, your first year or even beyond. If you have any questions at all, for example, how do I get into research? How do I tackle this class? So think of them as your buddies if you have any questions about college. This helps you feel a sense of belonging, like someone's got your back, in addition to learning about research and then other types of organization involvement. And so here's a picture, actually a fairly recent picture of our current peer mentors, both for first years as well as for incoming transfers. Now, I alluded to this learning community, and on this next slide, what are learning communities? What they are cohorts, small cohorts of about 24 students maximum. And the reason we have this for every single incoming freshman student in CNAS is because it's a big college. It's a University of California, which can be really, really big, and people can feel lost. But in these learning communities, you now have sort of a pre-populated study group. You'll be taking classes with these individuals, whether it be mathematics, biology, or chemistry, but you'll also be doing it with those of the same major. So imagine a class of 24 biology majors or 24 math majors taking the same classes and advancing together your first year. In these learning communities, you don't have to worry about waitlisting or fighting for classes because they're pre-populated for you. We take care of you the moment you start your registration. So that way you don't have to worry about where's my class, how am I going to get this, how am I going to proceed. In addition to these learning communities with your peers, they're actually led by both a faculty advisor as well as a staff advisor. The faculty member is somebody who's in your department, so a biology professor or a chemistry professor. The academic advisor, you actually have seminars with once a week. They will actually help you navigate college in general, where are your resources, how to study, how to time manage, all the important skills for you to be successful as soon as you start here at UCR. So have we done research on whether or not these things work? The answer is yes, emphatically yes. Students who stay in these learning communities have upwards of a third of a full GPA point higher than the peers who have decided to opt out. And students in these learning communities are more likely to continue on into their second year and beyond. So these are extremely helpful. And I've had my own students say, I still keep in contact with my learning community or LC friends. And now I'm a doctor. So 8 years later, it's still impactful as a cohort. So one of the questions I got in the chat was, are there limited spots? No, because we got you. So we intend to have every single first year placed in a learning community. Now, with regards to the learning communities, how do you know where you place? You're placed based upon math placement, what your AP scores were, and or how you scored on the math placement exam or the math placement assessment. So if you see an email coming down the pipeline that says, hey, take the math placement exam, please do so soon, because that's what we use to place you in the requisite learning community. If you try to wait for your AP scores, it still works, but you can get into the learning community much faster once you take that math placement exam. And you can do that as soon as May 15th. So, excellent question from a chat too. Are transfer students also included in learning communities? Transfer students also have their own cohorts, as a matter of fact. So they have something called NAC not 91, but 92. So yes, transfer students also have their respective learning community cohorts. Now that we have all of this academic-y stuff, what about some of the non-academic clubs and organizations? Here's a small sample, just out of curiosity. Does anyone have a guess into how many organizations we have here at UCR? Go ahead and type your guesses in the chat. 60, 40, 132. That's pretty specific. All right. 50, 200 plus. Well, believe it or not, there are over 300 organizations here at UCR. And this is only a very, very small sampling of what is out there. So with regards to these organizations, you can see some of these are, STEM focused, a bit more science heavy, but it's not just research. A lot of them are actually pre-health, pre-farm, pre-med, several pre-meds, as a matter of fact, pre-dent. We have the biochemistry club, which I love participating in. The chemistry club, I actually give my Harry Potter potions lecture in. And, we also have a ton of outreach. So there are things both on and off campus. Now, how can you navigate all this? Because it can be overwhelming. One of the last slides I do want to show you is that we have fantastic academic advisors. Every single CNAS student is assigned to a very specific academic advisor based upon your major. And this academic advisor will be able to help you for things like, what courses should I take? Am I on track to graduate? And so on and so forth. So that's actually the best part about the academic advising. And there's two prongs to this. If you have a quick question, we've got a 5-minute walk-in window. As you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, you see one of our advisors, Arielle Shepard. She's fantastic. If you have a bigger question, for example, I want to change my major. I want to change my minor. I've got something going on. I need a little bit more time than 5 minutes. You can make an appointment with your specific advisor, and these appointments are 30 minutes long. So there's more than one way to get assistance. And we're here for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. So if you have any questions, by all means, attend this. So in sum, after all of this, because I do want to get to my kids, my students, I call them my kids. Sorry, it is what it is. What sets us apart? So the last slide is going to be a couple of basic concepts. One, these learning communities. We set you up for success your first year, not your first quarter. We follow you through your first year to make sure you're good to go. In your second year and so on and so forth, you can use a peer mentors to help supplement that. We've got a ton of research that's available to students who search and ask. We have many organizations to help you. For example, if you're interested in pre-health professions or industry or otherwise, and you have a wonderful set of staff and faculty who are here to assist you. Since we have all of this, I do want to mention that the very last bullet point, we have a new building, for crying out loud. There's a new building going up for general biology labs. So for you incoming freshmen who are be taking general biology, you got a brand spanking new building starting this coming fall. So we're pretty excited about that too. So if you have any questions, please start typing them in the chat. Here's our QR code for any Q&A you might have. I'm going to go ahead and toss a couple of questions to our science ambassadors here. And of course, I will always take yours. And don't forget to follow us on social media. We have a couple of different ways you can follow us. All right. So thank you, everyone. Here's where the Q&A starts. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Samantha. What made you choose to attend UCR?
So I kind of feel like I have a more interesting journey, I guess, into why I chose UCR. But I actually initially did not think I was going to attend UCR. I thought I was going to attend a different university. And I toured that school, went to their open house, did everything. And I was like, okay, like I'm going to go here. And then I ultimately decided that it didn't have the resources I needed as a pre-med student. And I SIR'd to UCR on the very last day that you could. I did it without touring. I did it without knowing anyone that actually went here. Like, it was really an impulsive decision, but after being here now for 3 years, I think it was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made, and I have zero regrets. I think that's something that is probably the best thing that you can say once you SIR and make that college decision because of the anxiety that goes into that process. But I ended up choosing UCR because of the resources specifically that they have for pre-med students. And what I've also come to love, besides just the pathway programs, the clubs, the PPAC, so that's sort of like the healthcare advisors that we have on campus. I think the community ultimately too made me decide that this was the place for me after obviously coming here. So yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Samantha. So in this case, I mean, first of all, thank you for being here because I love you anyway. But in this case, I'd like to find out with regards to your choice of major. And I'm actually going to toss this over to Evan because Evan didn't exactly come in with a declared major. Would you like to tell your story and why you chose your current major?
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Dingwall, I know she loves this story because I ended up coming home to her in biochemistry. But yeah, I came into college actually as an undeclared student. I came in undeclared life sciences. I kind of wanted to give myself the opportunity to explore, and I definitely took full advantage of it. So yeah, don't be afraid if you don't exactly know what you do. A lot of students do change their majors or come in undeclared and end up declaring a major. I never thought I would have been a biochemistry major until I came here and I explored taking different classes, joining different organizations, meeting different people, and eventually I found my way to like what I ended up loving doing, which is biochemistry. So yeah, it's just a lot of resources around me that kind of helped guide me, whether it was my advisor, whether it was other staff, whether it was other students. You definitely have a good network of people around you to help make some of these more difficult decisions.
Cool. And I do actually claim Evan as one of mine since I am biochemistry, but that's all right. Now, with regards to Asal, I wish I could have claimed her for biochemistry, but that's okay. Can you please tell me what a couple of your favorite classes were?
Yeah, of course. So the first year I came here as a transfer student, I took Dr. Dingwall's class, actually, Introduction to Biochemistry, and I really liked it because we would draw like the glycolysis or Krebs cycle. And I think I never thought about like learning those concepts specifically. Like I just memorized it, but I feel like when you draw it, it kind of stays to your mind even after a while. And then also I took two other classes with one of our deans here, Dr. Maduro, human genomics and embryology and development. And also throughout those classes, specifically human genetics, I learned about like different syndromes or different diseases, and it was really related to medicine and mechanisms. So I really like those classes.
Great. So in that case, are there any other questions? Again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat and or the Q&A. So speaking of classes, since Asal had just answered this, one of the questions is what classes would say a plant biology major take in their first year? And most students in either agricultural sciences or life science would take general biology, general chemistry, and their math class. In their second year, they would take organic chemistry and physics. You would probably start your major specific courses in your late second year or even your third year, because many of these majors require something called the core. And the core would be, again, general biology, general chemistry, general physics, and organic chemistry. All right. And now another question, I just want to see this here. What other research opportunities are there other than lab classes for life science students? The answer is many. It just depends on what you want. So you can be a biology major and work in a bioengineering lab. You could be a neuroscience major and work in a psychology lab. You could be a biochemistry major and work in an organic chemistry lab. So it really depends on what you would like to do. And that's where your expansion of these research opportunities can go. And again, as Asal said, biology, but she works in biomed. So again, multiple opportunities. Now, I do see a question with regards to majors and minors. Majors and minors are actually one of the perfect places to actually interact with the academic advisors. So if you have a 4+1, I have a question about that. That would be a 4-year, roughly, bachelor's program, and if you maintain certain requirements and a certain GPA, you would just tack on your 5th year, and that's when you would get your master's. And those you'd be taking graduate courses to finish out your career. So that's what the 4+1 or the BS plus MS refers to. Right. So as the questions are coming in, I'm going to go ahead and ask another question of the panelists. I'm going to start with you, Samantha. Are there any tips, suggestions, or advice that you would give to incoming Highlanders?
So if you were like me in high school, I was someone who was very productive, very on top of things, and I thrived on being busy. I would say that if you are that kind of student, that although I would say carry that energy into college, definitely take your first year a little slower, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself, both because of academics, the transition, and also just the social aspect too. I think you want to make sure that you build your social support as a freshman. And yeah, so I feel like that's definitely my first tip. And that's what I tell as a peer mentor. I call them kids. So I guess I'm kind of like Dr. Dingwall that way. I always tell my kids, prioritize your academics. That's always going to be your baby, especially if you are looking into pre-med, but also to remember that college is more than just your academics. You're here to also be a part of that journey of your stepping away from high school and kind of like saying goodbye to childhood and welcoming your young adulthood. So also give yourself the grace of that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Evan, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I do want to definitely echo a couple of the points that Sam mentioned, where she did say take your time, definitely focus on building your social network. But one thing I would recommend is definitely take advantage of the resources your learning community has to offer. From just being in the same classes, same labs, same discussions with all these same students the whole year, it really does give you a spectacular opportunity to like form a very like tight knit network. And yeah, like I'm still very close with a lot of the members of my learning community today. I'm definitely very grateful for that I took advantage of that opportunity, and also take advantage of being able to get to know the faculty, your faculty and your some of your student leaders, your advisors early as well, because these are the people that will be here for you your whole 4-year college career. So taking advantage of people like that definitely paid dividends to me developing as a student, and to me getting involved in certain things, such as my peer mentors actually were the ones who convinced me to apply for the CNAS Science Ambassadors, and I have them to thank for all the growth that's given me.
Great, thanks. Since you brought up the Science Ambassadors, we talk a little bit more about the Science Ambassadors. First of all, how did you hear about the Science Ambassador? I'm going to pick on us all here because, you know, incoming transfer and all this kind of stuff. How did you hear about the Science Ambassadors, and what made you want to join?
So yeah, when this summer I was transferring, I was trying to find opportunities, and that's where I made an appointment with Noel, and he introduced me to Liz, which is our transfer advisor. So afterwards, I was signing up for like transfer emails about like updates or what's going on campus. And when I started in fall, I learned about Science Ambassadors program through one of those emails, and then when I learned about specifically Leader and Science, which is one of the projects we have that we go to elementary school and we teach like elementary students about like fun lesson plans, like making ice cream or other stuff. So I learned about that and I wanted to really be part of it because one of my passions is teaching. So I applied and started as a science ambassador. Yes.
Well, thank you very much for adding that in. Now, with regards to a couple of the questions in the chat, oh, here's one. Maybe the three of you can't answer. We'll see. What's the best time to get good parking if you have morning classes?
Lot 30 is kind of hard. That's the main lot, and that's the one that comes with the most basic parking permit. It can be difficult, but we have a lot of parking permits and there's also different kinds. So if you are able to, they have ones that are a little more expensive, but then you have access to different parking lots. But definitely if you're commuting or if you're even commuting maybe like 10, 15 minutes, I still leave like 20 minutes to find parking because you can never know and you never want that to be the factor why you're not going to class or like whatever you have on campus.
Right. So speaking of navigating, let's try a different type of navigation. Quarter system, where you have classes in 10 weeks and your first exams come pretty fast. Any words of advice, Evan, on how a student can navigate a 10-week quarter system?
Yeah, definitely get organized. That's the best thing that you could really do is get organized early. Don't think just because you're in the first quarter of school means, oh, my classes are going to be easy. They're not easy. It's all still really fast, especially coming from high school where most things are semester based. So yeah, the quarter system does catch up on you. I'm in my fourth week right now, and I already have my first exam. It feels like I just got off a spring break, right? Uh, so yeah, the more organized you can be with whether it's a Google Calendar, whether you do your calendar on paper, just make sure you have all of your schedule, your assignments taken care of, your schedule taken care of, your extracurriculars, your other obligations, all taken care of and all organized, so that you don't fall behind. Because as many students here do know, the trying to catch up after 10 weeks of slacking off a little bit is something that you might let happen once and you never let happen again, because it is hard. It is definitely a challenge. But I would just say don't make the same mistakes that the people before you might have made, and stay on top of everything. Don't fall behind, and then it won't feel so hard.
Okay, thank you very much. I see a couple of questions with regards to majors, so I'm going to go ahead and take that. For example, how easy or hard is it to change a major or declare a minor or something along those lines, or even switch majors? One of the things about switching majors, for students who have CERD, you can actually do so between May 15th and about June 7th or so. So you can actually go into your RWeb student account and make that major change. Again, up until the beginning of June. Anything beyond the 7th of June, you'd actually have to contact your academic advisor, your assigned academic advisor in CNAS. So that actually works to your advantage. Anything about majors and minors, please go to cnas.student.ucr.edu. And again, that's where the academic advisors would be able to help you. I also have one question with regard to the UCR Honors Program. Now, the UCR Honors Program is actually part of undergraduate education. It incorporates students from all the colleges, not just CNAS, but also the Bourne College of Engineering, the humanities, and so on and so forth. The honors program is fairly competitive. And with regards to that, if you didn't get in your first year, you have the opportunity to apply starting your second year. You just have to go to honors.ucr.edu. In the honors program, you'd have to do a capstone, and you'd actually work with a faculty mentor to work on your capstone project, whether it be research or something completely different. And the reason I say different is because I had a former student, my honors capstone student, major in biochemistry. What was their project? Writing a screenplay, because that's what they chose. And so they actually had a co-faculty mentor in the theater film department to help with their screenplay. Right. So, having said that, are there any other questions, either in the question and answer or the chat? Because if not, I do have one more question for my panelists. Okay, well, actually, Samantha, this might be yours. It's all yours too. What are some good pre-medical clubs at UCR?
Um, I would say for clubs specifically, one thing is like when you start in UCR, there's like specifically as a pre-med, you might fall into like this pattern of like just checklists to see like, oh, I have to do research, I have to do this volunteering. But I would say one of the best ways that I have learned to escape competition is through authenticity. So look for to see what is your passion and like what are the organization that aligns with your passion. So for example, we have Flying Samaritan. I believe that you go to like other other places and you do like volunteering for clinical. We have many free clinics. We have Inland Vineyard Free Clinic, Coachella Valley Free Clinic, so you can become part of those. We also have like I think a Greek life specifically for pre-meds, so you can join that. And I would say like definitely we have a lot of pre-med clubs to get involved, and just like be careful to see like which one actually interests you, and then join those organizations.
Building really quick off of what Asal said, when it comes to Flying Samaritans, I have a friend in the program and they specifically fly to Mexico once a month. And they help volunteer in a clinic there. And then also building off of what she said. So besides the, I think, more unique opportunities we have with free clinics, if you're just looking for like clubs, we have AMSA, American Medical Student Association. We also have, okay, I don't know the acronym, but it's like the American Women's Medical Student Association. So it's kind of like a version of AMSA, but oh, do you know the name?
It's Amma, I believe.
Okay,
Yeah.
AMA. And then what she was saying, it's a professional fraternity co-ed. It's called Phi DE, and that one is all pre-med. And then there's a healthcare, if you're not sure that pre-med's like exactly your thing, but you're like maybe nursing, maybe PA. There's HPA, which is Health Professions Association. So, and really what Asal was saying was there's so many clubs. I think you just have to go out to the meetings or the rush process and figure out which one exactly aligns with you, both in terms of the goal of what you want, like community service, social, or like lectures and stuff like that, and kind of just figure out which one's for you because there's definitely something here for you.
Right. And because we have so many opportunities, again, thank you both for your experience. Please do work with your academic advisors, talk to your faculty. If you want to go into other fields, for example, like forensics or something like that, we do have the UCR Career Center. And that way they'd be able to not only help connect you with opportunities, but work with your advising team to identify the classes appropriate for your career. Now, I do want to be cognizant of the time because we do have a fairly hard stop at 6:45. So if you have any continuing questions, please go to our website, cnas.ucr.edu. And again, feel free to reach out. So I'd like to thank our panelists, Asal, Samantha, and Evan for their participation in this panel. Thank you three very much because I know it's midterms week. And thank you all tonight for attending this webinar. We wish you the best of luck and we hope to welcome you as future Highlanders.